Eva Medalek here, your high performance coach, and I am so excited to join you today. I have Susan Schloss is joining with us today because she's a certified money coach, and she is going to talk with us a little bit about I guess what you would say is some generational issues around money, our relationship with money, and she really helps people deal with some of the money blocks that they may have that may be preventing you from accessing the abundance that we all desire and deserve. So just pop in and say hi and where you're joining from. I'm joining from California. Susan, you're in California too, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So let me just share a little bit about Susan and we'll have her tell you more about who she is. She is a certified money coach with more than 20 years in the financial services industry and a lifetime of spiritual practice. Susan is passionate about facilitating breakthroughs in her clients' relationships with money, and she combines practical financial expertise with intuitive inspiration, guiding her clients to integrate spiritual and material. Because I know a lot of people have a little bit of conflict with spiritual and material, and really having those two aligned. So having someone who is an expert about marrying the two and how they can work together is really great. So Susan, welcome. Hi, Amadou. Thank you for joining us. And Susan, so tell us, all of us who are listening, and just before I have you do that, I want you guys listening today, if you have issues or problems or a challenging relationship with your mindset around money, just put a one in the chat and we'll make sure that whatever questions you have about that, Susan will answer for you. So, welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much for having me, Eva. What a pleasure to be here with you. And I know it can be a very compelling topic for some people. So I look forward to the conversation.
How did you get into this?
Well, I really would not have expected myself to be in the money arena growing up because I was a creative, a musician, an artist,
Hmm.
and I was but I was very interested in people and psychology. And so, what I found as a career was music therapy. And so that gave me that psychology background. And then one thing led to another in my work life, and I ended up in the money world. And it turned out to be a good fit for just the way that I think. And really, I think it was like a karmic thing for me to work out some of my own money karma,
Mm.
help people to bridge their world with money through the emotional and psychological healing, as well as bringing spirituality into it. So I'm able to bring all of my own background in, which is really great. That took me a little while to
Hmm.
realize, okay, I'm a spiritual person and this is how I'm going to approach this. And that helped me to identify the people that I can really help.
So, what are the problems what do you most commonly see in folks that are keeping them from really having the abundance that we all desire to live abundant life, but having more money in their lives? Because as a coach, I work with people that a lot of people want to work with me, but they maybe don't have the funds necessary to hire a private coach. What are some of the common blocks that you see around money that are really blocking people from attracting more money into their lives?
It's such an important question. And it often does go back to this generational trauma issue where something in our childhood has affected us in a way that is coming through in our relationship with money, and it may not even be money related. So, in some cases, it is, and there may have been fighting around money. and that can make people just want to avoid it. So that's a very common dynamic that I see where people are just money avoidant or very anxious when it comes to money.
Mhm.
So it can be hard to engage and feel empowered. And sometimes these decisions are overwhelming for people when there is an opportunity to make an investment in something that it's just too scary to do it, even if there's money. And then what you're talking to, I think what you're pointing to could be an under earning issue. And that's a really fascinating subject that I've been diving into myself, both for myself and for my clients, because even when we're earning abundantly, there can be these issues of staying small to stay safe, under being. And that can also keep us from really living the prosperous life that we want to live. And under earning can be a result sometimes of being overly sheltered as a child. I've been seeing that recently, that kids, that parents might protect children, but it also can be due to any kind of childhood trauma. I mean, a divorce, racial trauma can absolutely lead to different kinds of money challenges for people.
You know, people of my age, which is, I'll say, well over 50, a lot of us grew up with parents who were raised in that depression era.
Right.
They brought that scarcity mindset, if you will, and that fear of losing everything into their adult lives because they've witnessed what their parents went through in the depression and the lack and what was going on during that time. And it's funny to me how that scarcity and lack mindset really gets passed down through generation or generation, even though there's no real lack or scarcity of resources. But the mindset and the fear is still there to the point where people are afraid to invest in themselves. People are afraid to treat themselves to some of the finer and nicer things in life. I see that. I saw that with my parents so much. And it was one of the things that drove me crazy. You know, let's use the good towels and the good dishes. Let's not save them or eat off of paper plates and things like that. And so how do you work on people's mindset to embrace a new way of thinking and kind of lose some of the fear, especially the fear people have in I would say any type of investment where there's a little bit of risk mitigation needed, whether it's financial investments or investments in themselves.
Yeah, this I've seen that quite a bit where people's parents grew up in the depression and there's this holding on and need to control that really stops people from living more abundantly. And like you say, it's not necessarily aligned with the actual circumstances in someone's life. And so I like to think of it, instead of changing a mindset, really changing our neurology and excavating that history. So that's the first thing we do, is really excavate that history. And we use money archetypes that help to identify these different parts of ourselves, so that that person, that part of us that is holding on tightly, just has a lot of fear around money and may be financially successful, but terrified of spending it or of taking risks, like you were saying. That's the money tyrant. So when you
What does that
identify
call a money tyrant?
money tyrant,
What
yeah.
what are the archetypes of money? I'm curious.
Well, that's one. And then the one I was describing earlier, where someone is highly anxious, and the other part of that is head in the sand, just avoidant. That's the money innocent. And that could be a reactive pattern to parents who were super controlling or ultra frugal, like overly frugal, fearful. Someone might just withdraw from money and not want to deal with it. And then there is the money victim. So this is someone who probably has some kind of abuse history and tends to blame everything on something outside of themselves, whether it's people or circumstances, and just feels really powerless and has very emotional reactions around money. So each one of these has a simple anecdote. The victim needs to learn how to forgive themselves and others, and also find gratitude in what is working. And the innocent needs to take baby steps. The tyrant needs to bring in the money magician and understand that, okay, we are taken care of, to be able to relax that hold a little bit. And then there's the money martyr who is over sacrificing, self sacrificing. And the money martyr needs to learn where their boundaries are and what their own needs are. That can come up for people around parenting or around charging our clients enough money. Have you ever been in that position where you're projecting that someone's going to not want to pay what you charge, or you're putting it all on outside of yourself, what your worth is, in a sense, basing those decisions. So I've worked with that myself in my business, and really ultimately we have to decide what lands for me around what feels like it's the right amount to charge and the right compensation for what my gifts are for the transformation that my clients are going to experience. So let's see who else. We have the warrior.
Mm-hmm.
The warrior is the one we want to have in charge, because the warrior has discernment, and the warrior is able to make the decisions with all the different elements in their awareness. And so there's a rational decision-making ability there that comes from that part of the brain, where some of these other archetypes are in a reactive mode, in fight or flight, or maybe just on the emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
So the warrior needs to get the information from our intuition and from our magician part of us. And those two work together, along with the creator artist that holds our vision. So that's your overview.
Yeah. Sounds like we all need a little warrior in our lives,
Yes, absolutely.
My coach likes to say, you've got to make a decision. Make the decision and make the decision right. So you've really got to be committed to whatever decision you make around your money, your spending, your investment, and then, not fall into victim or what I call ostrich, the burying your head in the sand, but really being brave and having the courage to look at what committed action that you can take to make these decisions that you make around money the right decision for you. So, what type of people actually do you work with in your practice?
I work mostly with women, but I also work with men one to one or in couples. And I'm working with a couple right now. It's so awesome to see a couple go from being in really different places to coming together and meeting in the middle and confronting some really hard things. It's very deep work for couples. It's deep work for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
people have to be ready to do that deep work.
Well, what is the problem or the challenge that people are experiencing that they seek out a person like yourself to hire?
Yeah, so they're hitting bottom around certain patterns in some cases of getting to a point in life. Maybe it's their age where they realize they're not preparing for retirement at all. And so they need to do something about that. Or in some cases, it's a life change around a relationship. That's been true in a few cases recently, where people are getting ready to get married or move in together, and they want to make sure that they're doing the money piece consciously.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people are motivated by not wanting to pass on their dysfunctional patterns to their children.
Yeah, that could be a big one because it's funny. I always look at ways that my parents' scarcity shows up in my life, and it may not look like um, actual dollars and cents, but I see it in like a shampoo bottle or a lotion bottle where I've got to get the absolute last drop out and not have any waste. And I rationalize it by saying, I'm not wasting, I'm protecting the environment. But there's a part of it that has an underlying current of scarcity, hoarding, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen my parents go through. And, I was able to recognize it and see it because I'm a highly thinking person about what they experienced. And it actually opened up my heart to be more, let's just say, give them the space and grace and be more forgiving about some of the patterns that I had to witness growing up and make a conscious decision to do life differently. It's not perfect, but it is different, and it really has me, growing up in an African American family. What I notice is a lot of those decisions were based off of value and worth and being perceived in society as less than and not valuable. Therefore, I don't deserve the best of this and the best of that. I just, have what I need, and that's enough. And as a little girl, or as a younger girl, I should say, that always bothered me. I didn't
Mhm.
understand why there was that low self-worth issue until I really got to learn about the undercurrents of, my parents' era growing up in Jim Crow, growing up always hearing that you're less than and worth than, and how we just bring that into our adult lives, and what we learn as children. Those patterns are so hard to break. So before we leave, first of all, I want to thank you for sharing these different archetypes with us and helping us to get a better understanding. How can people learn more about you and what you do? And I'll put that in the chat.
My website is moneywisdomcoach.com. And I do offer a complimentary consultation. You can take the money type quiz and schedule some time with me to go over that and get some insight into what's operating your money life. And Eva, I want to thank you for sharing your own personal story. I can relate to that too,
Oh,
as far as being, well, first of all, having done a lot of reading about the African American experience, I wasn't there as an African American person, but I just feel a lot around that. And it's deep. So
yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
It's deep, and the growth opportunity for me is to move from judgment around it. How we all like to criticize our parents. It's not one thing, it's your mother, but really to have more compassion about what they dealt with during the time that
Absolutely.
they were children and growing up, which they did a really, really good job of shielding me from. And my children in turn were shielded from, and they didn't even know how to recognize racism. I had to actually tell them what it was, which is interesting. And my one of my daughters is in the work of DE&I in the workplace and with startups. So it is really fascinating just how much how we grew up affects how we relate to money and wealth and abundance, and how scarcity really can hold us back from living our best lives. So thank you for sharing your money wisdom with us, and such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking the time to share with our audience today. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eva.
Bye, everybody. I will see you next Wednesday, same time.
Mhm.
Bye.